506 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Welcome back to the Vince Coglianese Show. I'm Corey Inganamort. I produce Vince's show. It's an honor to fill in for him today. He'll be back tomorrow. Don't you worry. Please dial into the program. Taking calls this hour. 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. Kamala Harris, her campaign is falling flat, and she can't talk about issues or anything of actual substance. So she's got a new campaign talking point this week, a new attack line on Donald Trump, and it's the most pathetic, hilarious attack you could ever imagine. Yes, she's attacking Donald Trump's mental acuity. She's attacking him for not releasing his medical forms. She's claiming that she's healthy and Donald Trump hasn't proved that he is so. This is the same woman who hid Joe Biden's cognitive decline for 3.5 years, said that he was completely fine, everything had nothing to worry about, but Donald Trump is the real threat because, well, we just don't know how unhealthy he is. This is her on the tarmac this weekend speaking about it. Stand by.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Madam Vice President.
So you saw I released my medical records today. I appreciate you. So today I released my medical records, as has, I believe, every candidate for president of the United States except Donald Trump in this election cycle. And it's just a further example of his lack of transparency, that on top of his unwillingness to debate again, his unwillingness to do an interview with 60 Minutes, which again is part of the norm of what anyone running for president of the United States does. And I think that it's obvious that his team, at least, does not want the American people to see everything about who he is.
So the second Kamala Harris needs a change of storylines, this change of news cycle, she releases medical forms so people can focus on that because that's what Americans care about right now. Doctor put out a statement October 12th, 2 days ago. This is what he said. The doctor is Joshua R. Simmons, MD. Said Vice President Kamala Harris has mild myopia. She wears corrective contact lenses. She's 20/20 vision. He also goes on to say the vice president is up to date on all preventative care recommendations, including colonoscopy and annual mammograms. She's taking vitamin D3 supplement, yada, yada. Who cares? Everything looks good. Goes on to say Vice President Harris maintains a healthy, active lifestyle despite her busy schedule, including vigorous daily aerobic exercise. Does anyone believe that Kamala Harris does vigorous daily aerobic exercise and core strength training? I do not believe that. She eats a very healthy diet. She does not use tobacco products and drinks only occasionally and in moderation. I doubt that, too. That would explain Kamala Harris acting like a drunk fool when she's campaigning most of the times. But this, according to the doctor, she only drinks occasionally. I don't believe that. Routine immunizations are all up to date. So that's the doctor's note signed by him, Joshua R. Simmons, MD. And that is now the campaign strategy of Kamala Harris. She's attacking Donald Trump that she released her medical forms and he did not. And she was on a campaign trail yesterday just talking about it.
And here's the thing. It makes you wonder. Why does his staff want him to hide away? One must question. Are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America? Is that what's going on?
She's got absolutely no shame saying that President Trump is being hidden away. Again, Joe Biden ran a basement campaign 4 years ago. Kamala Harris was running a basement campaign this year until, well, the polls weren't exactly looking good for her after a while. It worked for her when she first became the nominee, when the coup first took place. She stayed quiet, and there was this fake vibe, fake energy around her, and her polls were actually looking pretty good in August. She didn't do an interview until the last day of that month when she was asked about it. Remember, I'll plan on getting an interview sometime at the end of the month. It was August 31st that she did her first interview with Dana Bash, and she brought her emotional support candidate, Tim Walz, along with her. So there's absolutely no shame. She's saying Trump is being hidden. He's doing 10 times, and so is J.D. Vance, the amount of media appearances Kamala Harris is.
He's not being transparent with the voters. He's not being transparent. So check this out. He refuses to release his medical records. I've done it. Every other presidential candidate in modern era has done it.
So it's a clear attempt by Kamala Harris, maybe smartly in her case, because she doesn't want to talk about the issues. This is giving out some bait to Donald Trump. Go ahead, take it. Let's change the news cycle a little bit to battle about medical records. And, you know, Donald Trump is 79 years old, right? I think he's 79 years old. He's much older than Kamala Harris, who is 59 years old. She wants this to be about age and medical ability. Donald Trump should not take the bait on this. Excuse me. Just like during the debate when he took the bait about crowd sizes. She's like, Kamala Harris didn't want to talk about the border. So she's like, oh, and my crowd sizes are bigger. Nobody has bigger crowd sizes than me. Donald Trump took the bait when he should have been focusing on the border. But now Trump did take to Twitter. He took to X, not even Truth Social, X for more people to see. He said, today at 11:23 this morning, I believe it is very important that Kamala Harris pass a test on cognitive stamina and agility. Her actions have led many to believe that there could be something very wrong with her. Even 60 Minutes and CBS, in order to protect Lion Kamala, illegally and unscrupulously replaced an answer she had given, which was a total bonkers answer, with another answer that had nothing to do with the questions asked. Also, she is slow and lethargic in answering even the easiest of questions. We just went through almost 4 years of that. We shouldn't have to do it again. So there is Donald Trump with kind of a funny statement. You know, she's low energy, she's Lion Kamala. But I really just want him to stay on message. Don't take the bait. Don't make this an entire news cycle. We don't need to do that. And Kamala Harris keeps touting this whole thing. Oh, Donald Trump wouldn't do a 60 Minutes interview. Well, good for him. He shouldn't have done that because 4 years ago he was blindsided and railroaded incorrectly by Leslie Stahl, who said, well, there's no evidence that the Hunter Biden laptop was a product of it was actually his. It's not proven that it's not a product of Russian disinformation. She said all of that. And so Donald Trump said, no, screw you. 4 years later, I'm not going to do that again because you're not hosting an honest debate. So Kamala Harris, this is just a new campaign talking point that he's being hidden and won't do 60 Minutes interviews. She was on with Roland Martin today. He's got a podcast. And first of all, see how low her energy is. When Donald Trump says, yeah, she's got low energy. This is her talking about Donald Trump avoiding a 60 Minutes interview.
Let's fast forward to right now. His staff won't let him do a 60 Minutes interview. Every president for the last half century has done one, anyone who's running for president. Everyone has done it, except Donald Trump. He will not debate me again. I put out my medical records. He won't put out his medical records. And you have to ask, why is his staff doing that? And it may be because they think he's just not ready and unfit and unstable and should not have that level of transparency for the American people. There's a real choice in this election.
I think it's so funny, the audacity. It's complete reversal of what the actual truth is while Kamala Harris is being hidden. But about that 60 Minutes interview, they did edit the clips. You saw during the teaser of the interview, they put on a clip of Kamala Harris looking sharp and with it, and then the actual answer that aired, which got way less viewers, by the way, was a big, long, rambling nonsense about Israel. It made absolutely no sense. Well, Donald Trump is demanding an investigation into CBS and who allowed this. Alexis Strygorod from the New York Post wrote today, ex-CBS staffers call for outside probe of 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris amid editing scandal. So ex-CBS staffers are saying, oh, something's wrong here. We need to investigate. Former CBS News staffers are demanding an independent investigation into 60 Minutes over the brewing Kamala Harris interview scandal, even as the network digs in its heels and refuses to release the full unedited transcript. They won't release it. It's standard practice to release the transcript after an interview of this nature. The long-running news show has come under fire after allegedly cleaning up the Democratic – it did. The video evidence shows it, cleaning up the Democratic presidential candidate's answer to a question from 60 Minutes correspondent Bill Whitaker about Israel. Her reply was starkly different from the word salad the vice president served up in a clip to promote the interview shown by Face the Nation the day before. So the controversy has prompted media insiders and critics, including Donald Trump, to question the ethics standards of CBS. One former CBS News journalist said, "I think there should be an outside investigation. Obviously, there's a problem here. If they care about journalistic integrity, they would conduct an investigation or release the full transcript." Releasing a full transcript would provide clarity about where Harris's answer came from, but it may also arise more questions about the impartiality of 60 Minutes. So there it is. CBS under fire, but again, what does it matter? They're not acting on anything like that. So for Kamala to attack Trump for not going on air with 60 Minutes, it's a ridiculous attack because he shouldn't have, because they have no journalistic integrity. They railroaded him the last time unfairly and incorrectly. And Kamala Harris, who only appears on Howard Stern, The View, chats with Oprah, her best friend. Oh, and Call Her Daddy podcast. She's going on only friendly networks. Finally did one with 60 Minutes, and she has the gall to call Donald Trump out for it. Jay is in Southern Maryland calling on line 3. He wants to weigh in on this whole health controversy, quote unquote. Jay, welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I find it kind of ridiculous, all the talk about his health when, Kamala ended up, hiding Biden's big health and their whole, that whole fiasco, hiding that he was it's basically Weekend at Bernie's. But then, you have things that you have to look at, they won't put on TV or nothing. You have to look online. But he just played in a golf tournament for charity with, I think it was DeChambeau, where he goes to try to break 50.
Yeah.
And they were the second group to tie the 50 score. In like 2 or 3 of the holes, he scored birdie alone with DeChambeau as his partner. I mean, how healthy do you want to get? I mean, how many people can even shoot birdies, let alone hang there with a pro player?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just is amazing that people are just in their minds. And she's always going across the country, all over the place, talking everywhere, getting shot at, coming right back, getting, all those things. And it's like, oh, he's unhealthy. He's trying to hide something. But Kamala's sitting there and it's like, oh, yeah. And the whole news media and her were like, yeah, he's great. He's as sharp as a tack. And then 5 minutes later, the entire media world, from their camp is like, oh my God, we got to get rid of him. This is unbelievable. I just don't understand how people, if anything, whether you like Trump or not, doesn't it just scare people that our media out there, our television media is so corrupt,
it's propaganda,
and so one-sided. That's propaganda. I mean, come on, you got Animal Farm and everything else. What, we don't read those books anymore? We just read the books about, hey, who's a man, and here's our tampon Tim stuff in the boys' bathroom. And it's just insane.
It absolutely is insane, Jane, and you're right to be incensed by it. I mean, this guy gets shot in the ear, jumps right back up, says fight, 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 and they're saying, oh, this guy's not healthy enough to be president. Meanwhile, Joe Biden falls upstairs when he tries to get on Air Force One. He falls off his bike. He falls asleep at the beach, and they say, oh, he's completely fine. It's completely fine. Nothing to see here. Turn the page. It's completely Orwellian in nature. But, Jay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the call. You're exactly right. Let us head to the phones where we have Phil calling in from Fredericksburg. Phil, welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Corey. Well, first off, let me say you're doing a great job. Every time you do guest host, you're getting better and better, and I just wanted to throw that out there. It's not an easy job to do, and you do a real good job, and I appreciate that.
I got big shoes to fill when I'm filling in for Vince. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you, Phil.
All right. Well, look, I was listening to Chris Plant's program going back to our warehouse today, and they were playing a soundbite about a Republican was talking to this lunatic lady news reporter, and she kept banging this drum about this President Trump's medical record, and the guy was just hanging with her. He was just saying, "Are you kidding? He's out there all the time. He's out there 100%. He's out there all." And she just kept banging, and then she made the statement, don't you need to know his cholesterol numbers?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I busted out laughing. I was like, are you for real?
Phil, let me play that
on my own cholesterol numbers.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Let me play that audio for you. That was Kristen Welker on NBC Meet the Press talking to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Speaker,
that's what people are going to vote on.
Just to be very clear, he hasn't released all of his medical records. He released 2 letters. Should he release the results of the cognitive test?
It's unnecessary. He's on display every minute.
So it's unnecessary. You concede that he didn't release his medical records. You don't want to know things like his cholesterol level, whether he's dealing with any issue that we may not know about, if he's going to be commander-in-chief. And he also said he would release cognitive tests.
Listen to your question.
Should he release that?
The American people, Kristen, the American people don't care about the cholesterol level of Donald Trump. They care about the cost of living and the fact they cannot pay for groceries because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have put them in that situation. The medical records are irrelevant.
I don't know about you, Phil, but I'm totally willing to pay $6 for gas if Donald Trump's cholesterol is too high. Does that make 2 cents?
I could not give a blank about President Trump's cholesterol level. The man is a physical specimen. You just heard about how he played golf with pros. He's out there all the time. He's fighting for America while Kamala has to be handled like a moron. She's a healthy moron. We want President Trump in there. I don't need to know his cholesterol level, but it was the stupidest thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, I don't really care about it either. And in the medical records, it says that Kamala Harris drinks, but only moderately and on occasion. Do you believe that, Phil in Fredericksburg?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing they don't understand. No, I don't. I believe she drinks all the time. But look,
that would explain it.
Here's what they don't understand. When they broach this subject, Joe Biden's medical records do not reflect the level of disability in his brain. And they're doing this. I think part of the reason they're doing this is because Joe Biden keeps bum rushing Kamala at her events. He keeps doing things when she's trying to get media coverage. He pops out of the woodwork and does something that, hey, look at me. I'm still here.
Yeah, Axios just reported on that. There is some friction between Biden and Kamala right now. Axios is reporting on that because, well, Kamala doesn't want to share the stage right now with the guy that she defended for the past 3.5 years and his failing record. There is some friction there. I'm watching with popcorn and I'm enjoying the show. Let them destroy themselves from within. We do have to leave it there, Phil. Hope to have you back on again soon. When we come back after this break, Kamala Harris has a plagiarism problem. A new scandal turned up today by Chris Rufo. 5:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. It's the Vince Coglianese Show. I'm Corey Inganamort, filling in for my buddy Vince today. He'll be back tomorrow. Do not worry. Phone lines are open this half hour. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Before I discuss Kamala Harris's plagiarism problem, I want to get Jason in Kensington on the line. He's calling in. Jason, welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, g'day, Corey. How you going, mate?
Good day, mate.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, mate. Go ahead.
Talking about cholesterol levels. I mean, here you had a president for the last X amount of years that had he had dementia and they knew about it. Not to mention like every other day he was falling ass over head, down walkways, and yet the slightest, like when they questioned Trump about walking down a walkway, and it looked like he had like a weird gait or something like that. I mean, they have such a selective memory, this media.
Yeah, it was like 3 months ago, Joe Scarborough said that this is the sharpest he's ever been and there's no problems whatsoever. It's all so Orwellian, like don't believe what you're seeing in your own eyes. And it's just the gall for these guys just to reverse this and say it's a Donald Trump problem now, that he's unhealthy and Kamala Harris is just so darn healthy. We see through it.
Yeah, she looks real healthy every time she speaks. I'm sure there's some sort of a mental deficiency there somewhere, whether it's alcohol induced or what, but she definitely is not, there.
Sir, she can't form a single thought off the top of her head. Everything's got to be a teleprompter or written in front of her. That's That's what she did this morning when she was ripping on Columbus Day, and everything's just handed to her. She reads it, and somehow we're just supposed to pretend that she's fine, and that's who we need as commander-in-chief. But smart points, Jason. I appreciate the phone call. So Kamala Harris and her plagiarism problem. Christopher Rufo is reporting on this today. She is a plagiarist. She's plagiarized quite a bit in her past. Here's what he wrote. Kamala Harris has become famous in part for her unique rhetorical style. She switches freely between various accents and peppers her speeches with catchphrases, pondering falling out of the coconut tree, discussing the significance of the passage of time, and moving the nation forward to what can be unburdened by what has been. Those are just a few of her greatest hits, if you will. I can think of quite a few other ones. It's time to do what we've been doing, and that time is every day. I actually have a T-shirt with that on. Kamala Harris at the bottom. People think it's a pro-Kamala, and then they read it. It's like, oh, that didn't make any sense. But Chris Rufo goes on. To her supporters, the vice president's rhetorical flourishes represents the values of compassion and optimism. To her detractors, her reliance on platitudes and tautologies demonstrates her unfitness for the presidency. But as we have discovered in this exclusive report, another element appears to exist within Kamala Harris's rhetorical universe, plagiarism. Here's the key point to this whole article here. At the beginning of Harris's political career, in the run-up to her campaign to serve as California's Attorney General, she and co-author Joan O.C. Hamilton published a small volume entitled Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. That was the book that she published. It was published to help establish her credibility on criminal justice issues. But according to Chris Rufo, there are huge excerpts in this book that were completely plagiarized. This, for example, what I'm about to read is word for word out of a different publication. Word for word, she wrote this. In Detroit's public schools, only 25% of the students who enrolled in grade 9 graduated from high school, while 30.5% graduated in Indianapolis public schools and 34% received diplomas in the Cleveland Municipal City School District. Overall, about 70% of U.S. students graduate from public and private schools on time with regular diploma, and about 1.2 million students drop out annually. Only about half of the students served by public school systems in the nation's largest cities receive diplomas. That was a mouthful. That was a lot. That was, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences straight from a different editorial. She completely stole it. And there's more. In another section of the book, Harris, without proper attribution, reproduced extensive sections from a John Jay College of Criminal Justice press release. There's another excerpt. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Another 5-sentence excerpt completely stolen from another publication. And Chris Rufo goes on, and this happened multiple times. And get this, in portions of her book, to make matters worse, she used as her source to pull this information Wikipedia. Yes, in her book, she used information from Wikipedia, which, as you know, anybody can go in and edit. It is if you write a college paper, if you present something at work and Wikipedia is your source, you get an F right away. You should get fired right away. That is not a reliable resource. You know, you can do a quick scroll on Wikipedia, get the facts you need, and then double check it with an actual reputable source. It's kind of a starting point. Is this true? You got to double check it. She duplicated things from Wikipedia, copied and pasted it, used it in her publication, and used it as fact. She misstated irrelevant details in some of her writings, Chris Rufo says. She claims in identical to the online encyclopedias that illegal vending was down 24%. Again, this is in her book about crime. It was as a result of the court's policies. Early in the paragraph, Harris cites the Bureau of Justice Assistance report to substantiate the figure, but she made a mistake. She got it from Wikipedia. And we know that because you can easily check. There are websites, you copy and paste something, see where it was from, and she copied and pasted it from Wikipedia. So this is a big scandal. This is a big deal. We know Joe Biden is a famous plagiarist. Well, now Kamala Harris is too. But the New York Times picked up this story, and they wrote about it. Here's what they said. Here's their headline. It's going to be shocking to you, but at the same time, completely and 100% believable. Here's how the New York Times reports it. Conservative activist seizes on passages from Harris's book. Subheadline. A report by Christopher Rufo says the Democratic presidential nominee copied 5 short passages for her 2009 book on crime. A plagiarism expert said the lapses were not serious. A plagiarism expert said the lapses were not serious. So there they go. They're just excusing it. Totally no big deal. Moving on. Kamala Harris is allowed to plagiarize if she wants to. It's just not a big deal. Who is this plagiarist expert they consulted? Was it a middle schooler who also plagiarizes? Was it Joe Biden who also plagiarizes? Was it a donor who wants to get her elected? None of it makes sense. But that's how the New York Times predictably covers her plagiarism issue. So there you go. What are the polls saying right now? Obviously, we are 22 days away from election. 22 days. I'd say it's hard to believe it, but no, it's felt like an eternity to get to this point, and I think the next 3 weeks are going to feel even longer. But over on NBC, on Meet the Press, Kristen Welker highlighted some warning signs, some big red flags for the Kamala campaign. You know, Kristen Welker, the one who cares more about Donald Trump's cholesterol than Kamala Harris destroying the country, she had this to say about these new head-to-head matchups numbers from NBC.
The big headline, this is a national head-to-head poll, is that Vice President Kamala Harris had a 5-point lead in our last poll taken a month ago, right after the debate. That lead has all but evaporated, Willie. Take a look at this new head-to-head matchup, 48% to 48%. That is what we call a deadlocked race. It underscores what we all know, that this is tight, that the country is sharply divided. One of the other big headlines here, people are viewing the Trump presidency more favorably than the Biden presidency. Why is that significant? We've seen the vice president get pressed repeatedly on what she would do differently than President Biden.
Yeah, and they have no answers for it. So that is a good sign that President Trump's presidency, in hindsight, you know, there was a lot of overreactions. Oh, he means tweets and the chaos that he brought when it was actually the media bringing the chaos and Donald Trump just governing like a sane individual would. New polling is showing that people view his presidency more favorable than Joe Biden's. That is a big problem for Kamala's campaign. Steve Kornacki weighed in also on the same program.
No, absolutely not. And maybe a reason for that, too, is remember, she's the VP in an unpopular administration. Look, we asked Joe Biden's policies as president, do you think they're helping or hurting your family? Look at that. Almost 2-to-1 say hurting more than helping. His job approval rating is in the low 40s. And then here's the twist. When you ask folks, when Trump was president, were his policies helping or hurting? Look at that difference. 44% say helping, 31% say they hurt. So retrospectively, wow, Trump is getting some numbers here.
Big deal. That's a really big deal as people are heading to the polls today in many states. This week, Georgia starts early voting in person. North Carolina has been via mail for quite a while. Virginia, by the way, some of the early voting is still looking positive for Republicans. Again, not saying he's going to pull it off, but he just might, which is actually a huge improvement over Joe Biden winning 4 years ago by 10 points. What does this translate to North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia? Well, things don't happen in a vacuum, and you'd have to assume there's movement that way as well. And the Senate races, too, looking positive for Republicans. West Virginia is going to be a pickup. Governor Jim Justice is running for Senate. He's going to take Joe Manchin's spot. And in Montana, Tim Sheehy is looking very good right now against John Tester. I'm watching that very closely. Polls are out of Pennsylvania, 2 points difference between Bob Casey and Dave McCormick. Arizona is going to be very interesting in the next couple of days because Kari Lake, who by pretty much every poll is losing by 5 to 7 points to Ruben Gallego. There is going to be some news that drops probably later this week. Did you know Ruben Gallego left his wife while he was 9 months pregnant? They divorced right before his wife was set to have this baby. Well, they divorced, And the Washington Free Beacon has been suing to get the documents unsealed in the divorce papers, and they were successful. So these divorce papers are set to be public probably this week. Exactly why did Ruben Gallego leave his 9-month pregnant wife? We may find out. There may be a scandal here. There may be accusations. This wife doesn't really want this to be released either because she is currently the mayor of Phoenix. So she's got a political future she's looking out for. What happens here is going to be very, very interesting. So those are the latest poll numbers. Things look fairly positive, but we can take nothing for granted right now. They're very, very close. J.D. Vance takes nothing for granted. He's on the campaign trail right now, actually. He just wrapped up remarks in Minnesota. He is, in this audio you're about to hear, standing in front of the police station that in 2020 was burned down during the BLM riots that, the riots that Gwen Walls enjoyed the smell of. She opened her windows. Here's J.D. Vance just eviscerating Tim Walz outside the police station in his home ground.
First, I just want to say a little bit about what this building behind us represents. So you can see it's all boarded up. This is, of course, the headquarters of the 3rd Precinct, which was burned down. Thanks to Tim Walz's completely failed leadership. And, talking to these folks behind me, these are law enforcement officers. A lot of them were here, some of them for many days when this was allowed to happen. And remember, during those riots, these guys were given up for dead. Their police chief told them to stand down, hoping that it would save their lives. A couple of them just told me just now their fear that they would be killed by the violent mob that was attacking this precinct. And the important question is, what were their leaders, in particular, what was Governor Tim Walz doing to keep these officers safe and to bring order to the city of Minneapolis? The answer was absolutely nothing. They described being left for dead by the person who wants to be the Vice President of the United States. And to all the folks who are watching this, I think the message is very simple. That do we want a kind of leader who stands with the law enforcement, who fights for them, who protects their lives as they go about keeping us safe? Or do we want someone who encourages rioters and looters to burn down this precinct, who leaves the officers for dead, and then a president who then bails out some of those same rioters and looters out of prison? I think we want the law and order president. We want somebody who stands with our law enforcement, and most importantly, who stands with the communities that depend on law enforcement, and that means we want Donald J. Trump as president.
Awesome. And great optics, too, right in front of this police station that was burned down under Tim Walz's leadership. And like I said, Donald Trump has a town hall with Fox News in 2 days focusing on women voters. This is a message he needs to push. Safety. If you want safety in your communities, I'm the candidate for you. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz let their communities burn down to the ground, quite literally. Kamala Harris was out there raising money for the Minnesota Freedom Fund. This is a group that during the riots, there were over $2 billion worth of damages. These are businesses that don't rebuild. They say, oh, well, insurance. Well, who the heck's going to rebuild in the same spot where the government allows their buildings to burn down? It would only happen again. There were over 30 deaths during the riots, and Kamala Harris has the nerve to raise money to bail out the rioters who committed these crimes. So good for J.D. Vance. I'm looking forward to that town hall Donald Trump has in 2 days. And also breaking this afternoon is that Kamala Harris will be sitting down with Bret Baier on Wednesday. 6 o'clock, it will air. It will be pre-taped, I believe. It said it will air at 6 o'clock, so I'm not entirely sure about that. I'll double check. But Kamala Harris changed a strategy. Things are not working. She's actually going to appear on Fox News with Bret Baier on Wednesday. We'll make sure to have that audio to you on Thursday. I promise you that. Let's head to the phones where we got Nina calling in from Ashburn. Nina, welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. So I just wanted to shed a little bit of sunshine on a cloudy day. Over the weekend, I sat down with at least 40, probably more than that, of colleagues of mine from Prince William County and Loudoun County. We were celebrating the awards of receiving the Blue Ribbon Excellence Award in our schools, and I'm probably the only open Republican in our group. Everybody else is a Democrat, and after some beers, the truth comes out when you start feeling a little frosty. Well, one by one, our group of teachers, were talking about how they are secretly going to be voting for Trump. And I feel kind of like I shouldn't be telling you, but I'm not calling out any names. I just wanted to let you know that there are so many.
That's great. Nina, unfortunately, we're up against it, but that is a feel-good story to start your week. Happy Columbus Day. It was a pleasure being with you. Vince will be back tomorrow.